need to start doing these from traveling around Europe or something like that.
That'd be fun. I haven't
Yeah,
spent,
so we gotta we get everybody here.
I mean, we got
Uh,
the three of us.
well, right now it's just the two of us. So I know Pete's traveling. So I don't know who else is there. Let me see if I can't. I know. Yeah, it might be just you and I today.
All right.
That's a weird, right? Well,
Yeah.
I think Craig's supposed to be on here, right? Let me
Yeah.
text her, see where everybody is.
Good morning.
All right.
Hey, David Lawson's rolling in.
Right. Well, there we go. We got not just the two of us anymore. We got at least three of us now. We're getting there.
Now we're a crowd. Freeze the
I
crowd.
think, I think, I think, I think what's happening. So Lurchy's on there, so he'll be in a second. I think what's happening is I know it's raining in San Diego right now. That's like a blizzard, right? To people in San Diego.
No
No
Yes, it is.
doubt.
And Dave, it's just a blizzard there 9 months out of the year, right?
Actually, I'm traveling. I'm in San Diego this week. And yeah, so it rained and it's like there's warnings and emergency things like don't go out, it's raining. I'm like, if they
Isn't
did
that
that
funny?
in Utah, we would never go out.
Right? I know, right? I know. Pretty funny. People are funny. It's like people when they come down. So our rainstorms down here in Florida are blinding. You cannot see on a really good downpour. And so you'll see people all the time pulling over and not driving because it's like driving in a blizzard. But I'm like, come on, I've driven in a million blizzards. It's not that bad. Look for the car light in front of you. You're fine. Uh, all right. So we'll go ahead and get rolling. I'm sure if anybody else comes on, we'll go on. What's up, Lechy? How you doing, bud?
Good. I think we just graduated to a gaggle.
Again, right. Well, it's funny. Everybody's slammed. It's a bit, which is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Everybody's busy. So for anybody that's saying the market's not busy, there's Dennis, this Souza. Anybody saying the market's not, is bad, it's as bad as you want it to be in your brain. You can still be selling houses. I look at real estate as a psychology business. And with realtors is, I've been doing coaching calls all morning. I've had 4 coaching calls so far this morning. And what I find is I'm just going to rant for a second here because I think it's really powerful. So what I'm redefining the whole real estate world with my team model and all that stuff and the modern team. But I had a great conversation with a realtor the other day. I want to share with everybody because I think it's really easy, really cool. So most realtors are not successful, right? We can all agree on that. 86% fail within 18 months, and that's just the business. Doesn't have to be, but I want to give you 2 things to think about. It has nothing to do with our conversation today, by the way, but I want to throw this out to you guys. Is it a want or is it a need? And it was a very powerful statement an agent said to me, and I fought her on it because I didn't believe it until I actually stood back and said it. So when I got my license, I had, let you guys know I just lost $82 million and I was completely broke. I had $14,000 to my name, 2 properties, and I literally had 3 months worth of revenue before I had to go bankrupt. And I needed to make a sale. And I made a sale my first week. In fact, I sold 36 homes my first year because I needed to be successful. But here's what I hear from most people. I want I want to be successful, right? Or I want to have a good job. I want my job to be good, meaning they're realtors. So nobody ever calls their real estate business a business. They say, I don't want people to know I do a good job. I said, I want people to know I run a good business. Different mindset, right? Different mentality. Same thing. If I say I want to sell 36 homes this year, well, there's no goal there. I just want it. I want to get hair back. Me and Matt been talking about that a lot lately. How are we going to grow our hair back? Um, Not going to happen, right? But if I need to grow my hair back, I'm going to go and I'm going to pay to someone to do a transplant in my head, right? So I would make it happen. So in fact, it's funny. I've always said I want to play guitar with Tommy Shaw. Well, I'm making that a need. Tommy Shaw's from the guitar player for Styx. If you don't know who Tommy Shaw is, and Styx is one of my favorite bands. So I need to play it. So I am going to figure out how I'm going to meet Tommy Shaw and play guitar with him. So and if you know me, you know I'm going to make that happen. Just like I made playing at Fenway Park a need, and I did it. So I want you guys to think before we get rolling. This is still the beginning of the year here. is I want you to really think strongly about, do you want to be successful or do you need to be successful? If you want to be successful, maybe, right? Now I give you all credit for being on these calls, but if you need to be successful, you will be successful. All right. So with that, today's
Mitch,
subject.
can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, Brian, everybody knows Brian from the call, was in our market, and he came and spoke with my guys, kind of say the same thing, need, but he changed it to a word, must. Do you choose to do it or must you do it?
Yep.
And when it's a must, like I must get this amount of money to save somebody in my family for a heart transplant by the end of the month, you will fight different. I must defend my family from the person coming in it. You fight different. And the challenge is kind of, I think what Matt had said one time, we all get so busy following the dollars that the dollars make us comfortable. But if you, and even Bobby said it, he goes, get the money out of your freaking account, fight like you got zero and fight like you got nothing. That video you guys put out with Tony Robbins the other day, when he talked about, a guy making $14,000 a year, and he went to his financial buddy and said, you got to take 20%. You have to do this if you never want to be done. And when he retired, he was making like $70,000 a year as a postman, but he was worth $70 million. He gave $35 million away. Once you get it out of your head of what you choose to do and all those things, if a doctor says you got to lose weight or you're going to die, you must change or you're going to die. It isn't an option when you make it non-optionable. So sorry for on that rant, but I wanted to
No, it's true.
and it acclimated down to what Bobby said, and then what talked about Matt said. Don't look at the dollars, look at the units, and then it got reinforced again with the video you guys sent out with Tucker Carlson. Whether you like him or not, was a fantastic interview. I like him so, but Tony was on fire, and I don't know how many people signed up for the free thing for 3 days with Tony Robbins.
Right.
Starts today.
Yeah,
It starts today at 2:00. I know we all got busy schedules. I got a plane on my 80-inch in the office for anybody in the office who wants to come see it. I'm going to come see who do it. I actually have an attraction meeting with somebody at the same time, so it'll kind of be fun. But the question is, do we want to do it or must? I said I must do it, and I told every one of my kids, you must watch this because we are having a meeting on it as a family.
Well, I told my agent, and one of the challenges, and I know we're on a completely different subject here.
Sorry about that.
No, but I think it's important because it's a new, it's a new year, it's a new, you have choices, right? And I always tell people one of the reasons why realtors fail is because the barrier entry is $1,500. But what would you do differently if you invested $250,000 in your business? Everything. Like every single person on this call, including us, by the way, if we invested $250,000 to start our real estate career, we would have done our real estate career differently, right? But we don't. It's $1,500. $1,500 is a night out with my wife overnight at a hotel somewhere and dinner. She has expensive taste. It's 20% of a purse for my wife.
We're drinking tequila with you guys in Cabo.
Yes, that can get costly too. But anyway, so I don't want to, man, but I just want everybody to think from a mindset shift. A lot of people are thinking that they have a job. You don't have a job, you have a business. If you're not running a business, you're not going to be successful. And many people think they want, but they need or must. I used to tell my agents, look, if I was told you, if you don't do this by next week, I'm going to kill one of your children, what would you do? You would get it done. You would. I mean, that's just the reality. Need. All right, so let's go ahead. Since you're talking, let's start. So today's personality profiles, and we're going to talk about.
Oh, that what we're doing?
I
thought that's next week.
Oh no, I think it's this week. I don't know. I think it's this week.
We were finishing up from last week, which was
okay.
Sellers. I know Brian didn't go, and
okay.
Dave.
That's right. Let's finish that up then. Okay, we'll stop there. We can go to profiles afterwards. All right. So who didn't go last week? I wasn't here last week. Brian, Matt.
Let's go.
What was the topic last week? I wasn't on last week, so
neither was I.
The topic.
Yeah,
What was it?
Actually, the topic was in regards to conversations with sellers, kind of preparing them for this market. Just what do you do in your conversations with sellers? How to get them to come to reality. It was just more of a general topic that we were using going into listing appointments and et cetera. Randy did a good job. What he did was Pete started off talking, and then Randy asked him a couple questions. It turned into a mastermind with Pete firing off continuous scripts and just redirecting and reflecting and kind of going at it with a seller mindset that was fighting him back on reality. And so going into that, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll use a very recent example, which was a listing appointment that I was on yesterday, frankly, or I guess 2 days ago. And that was a house here in the market that I kind of work, which is Levenheim, which is kind of an upper end market. And this guy's house was, by the comps, there was a pretty similar model that had just closed this summer for $3.2 million, right? However, his house had a lot of deferred maintenance, and it needed, it was very dated. It needed a lot of work, needed a remodel basically, but it was still a 4,200 square foot house on a large lot and in a nice neighborhood in the same area and so forth. And so just by having a very candid, direct conversation with him and explaining to him that, in my opinion, that house should list for $2,495 because there's probably $200,000 or $300,000 of work that it needed. And we can't just give someone a $200,000 or $300,000 discount because guess what? They have to go through all the hassles of doing all the work, right? So my suggestion was to put it around, $2,495, and that way maybe we could bid up the price, maybe not. But I explained to him that what agents do when they overprice a home and why they overprice a home, which is called buying a listing. So I had this conversation with him. I said, you have to understand, this guy's name was Steve. I said, Steve, you got to understand that the majority of the average agent in San Diego sells 4 or 5 homes a year. So getting this listing could be 20, 25% of their annual income. So they are absolutely desperate to get the listing, and they know what you want to hear as a seller. Hang on, let me just turn this off. They know exactly what we agents know what you want to hear as a seller, right? Especially when we know you're interviewing multiple agents. You want to hear that your house is worth as much as possible. And you're going to view the agents that tell you that your house is only worth this much as, a lot of times sellers will look at those agents and say, well, that agent just wanted me to underprice my home so they could sell it real quick and get a commission and so forth. When reality, the agent that's lying to you and telling you should list your house for $3 million instead of 2.5, they're the ones doing you the biggest disservice. Because what either they don't know what they're talking about, which is bad, or they know what they're talking about and they're purposely lying to you to get your listing. They're telling you your house is worth more than it's worth, knowing that they're gonna get the listing. They're gonna get a 6-month listing, let's say, and then 3 weeks or a month from now, they're gonna come to you and say, "Gosh, Steve, I don't know what I was thinking. Boy, the market's really changed. We got to drop the price." And now you've gone on the market at a very inflated price, and you're just going to be chasing the market down. So they're doing you the biggest disservice by BSing you, and most of them are doing it on purpose. So I had a long conversation with this seller that's what agents do. That's called buying a listing, and they purposely inflate the value because they know that's what you want to hear. And in reality, it's the agent that's telling you the truth and telling you your house is only worth this much, who's being honest with you, that's doing you the best service. Because then you're actually going to sell your house and you're going to get the absolute highest price that the market will bear. So I think that's a really good way to approach it, because the agents that are inflated, and I said, if you interview 3 or 4 agents, which this guy had done, if everybody's at, right here and one agent's way up here, that's the one that's doing you a disservice and trying to buy the listing. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking at the same data. That the comps that I have here for you are the same ones that buyers agents and buyers are going to be looking at and appraisers are going to be looking at. And, it's not an exact science, but, you can look at these numbers and look at the work that your house needs and know that no one's going to pay you $3 million for your house. So it's just about having a very real conversation. And also, I think, as from our perspective, it's not being super attached to the outcome. Um, I like to give a lot of guarantees when I go after listings because it gets me an at bat, meaning I get a listing appointment out of it. But it also, like, for example, this guy responded to a mailer that I did that said, we'll sell your home in 1 weekend. Right. And so that was attractive to him. He said, Ajay, I don't know how you can do that. I said, well, if we're going to market, and I've been running this same USP for a while. And I said, look, we're going to market your house for a couple of weeks without any showings. We're going to funnel all the showings into 1 weekend. Selling real estate is a sprint. It's not a marathon. But the purpose, my point is that me offering that kind of a guarantee, sell your house in 1 weekend, it makes me be honest about the price, right? We all know selling real estate's a sprint. It's not a marathon. We all know your first offer is often your best offer. We all know that even where the market is right now, you're on the market, at least here in San Diego, if you're on the market, 45, 60, 90 days, you're in trouble. That house should have sold way long before that. And probably in most markets where inventory is low. So I think it's just about being very, very real and upfront and honest with sellers. And I think that if you do it, if it's coming from the right place, I think they respect that. There's always going to be an agent that's going to go in there and try to buy the listing by exaggerating the value. And when you can poke holes in that and show them why that's wrong and what you're telling them is right, I think you win a lot of confidence, and the seller has a lot of confidence in you. So
Okay.
that's what I would say. But anyway, that's the conversation I just had. So
Awesome. Who else didn't get to speak last week on this? So I can do that.
Can I add some of that on what Matt just said? Sorry for
Yeah,
jumping.
sure, go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Matt, that's huge. And I actually twist it a little bit and have some fun with it. I was like, you know what? Maybe that agent's right. I said, why don't we do this? If you had an offer of what I said today with no contingencies, would you take it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, good. Let's call that agent right now and tell them we're going to sell you your house for
Right.
my number. No commissions, no nothing, all out, and he can flip it and keep the upside.
I love it.
Why
That's
would they
great.
do it? I said,
That's good, Craig.
top of it, they probably can't afford to do it. I said, make them put their money where their mouth is. If it's such a good deal and I'm so far under market, buy it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's a
I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think we're always going to be going up against agents that are telling the seller what they want to hear and telling them it's worth more than it is. So I think it's always an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I've
could
done
get
a
a Mitch.
pretty good job. I've done a pretty good job with that. But what I've done is I actually take them to listings at the same price they want to sell it at. And I say, look at this kitchen. Is this kitchen better than your kitchen? Well, yeah. I've done this several times over the years, and it really is powerful because now they're getting the visual of like, oh yeah, this house is listed at that price that I want to be at, but this house is 300 square feet bigger or 500 square feet bigger. They got a new kitchen, they have new bathrooms. I've got a 20-year-old bathroom. Visuals work really well too. Dennis, go ahead. But
Can you guys hear me okay?
yeah,
Perfect. So I'd like to hear Dave Lawson. Dave and Matt are probably the two strongest listing agents we have on this call. But I recently had a listing that I bought, like Matt was saying, but I bought it about 8 months ago, and the market in San Diego was a little better back then, right? So we came in at 4.6. We were in escrow for 4.5. In escrow for 40 days, fell out of escrow, which was horrible, right around the holidays. So it came back on. And, I had some apprehension, you guys, about talking about a price break with these folks, right? Because we're in escrow for 4 or 5. I know it's overpriced at this point. The market's shifted quite a bit. So I just went for it. And you know what? And I asked them, I said, have you guys spoke about doing a price adjustment amongst yourselves? That was my call. Instead of me coming out and saying, hey, we need a price break, I like, have you had a discussion about that? And you know what they said to me? They're like, yeah, we've been talking about it this week. So it was a perfect time for me just to call them. It was very easy. I was like, okay, fantastic. And then they asked me, what do you think it should be? I said, we should be at 4.25. That's where we need to be. So, that was a $350,000 price break, which some of us in this industry have a apprehension about talking to our sellers, right? It's the call. We don't want to call them saying the escrow fell apart because that's a horrible call. We don't want to talk about a price break. That's a very tense call sometimes. So, and we just have to remember that sometimes our sellers are actually thinking about that. We just have to be the one to initiate it. So
Yeah, Dennis, I had a similar situation where we listed a property back in November for 2,650, and we've now dropped it. We dropped it to 2.4, and now we dropped it to 2.3. But I had a conversation with the sellers where I said, look, and they were very, we were all on the same page. I said, look, it could have sold for 2.6, 2.650. We were swinging for the fences. It could have happened. It just didn't. But I kept calling them on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. Like, we dropped it down to 2.4 right before the holidays. And then after the holidays, the middle of January, I had to call them up and say, let me give you an update. Crickets. Absolutely no showings, no interest, no calls. We're getting nothing. We got to drop the price. And fortunately, they were like, we were thinking the same thing, so
yeah.
it's just about being honest. The market speaks and we got to listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, this time last year, guys, you could take an overpriced listing, right? A little bit, or even 2 years ago, and it would sell. We all know that, right? We were doing it. If the comp showed $1.5 million, we take it at $1.6 million, right? Because it would probably sell. I mean, it's a different market now, so now we have to be very careful. The other thing on this listing that I have, I'm paying staging fees of $1,000 a month, so it's kind of on me to make this thing move, right? So there's different things that we have to be careful of. That's what
Where's
I
that
have
listing,
right now.
Dennis?
That one's in Crown Point that I got from your newsletter, Matt. Thank you very much. I still owe you dinner.
You
for
really
that.
owe me a dinner, man. You keep
I
saying
owe you like 5 Ruth Chris dinners for that one. And I want to pick your Matt's probably the best guy, you guys, on this call with USPs. I mean, the one you just told me, Matt. I don't even know what that is, but you're gonna tell me what it is.
Yeah.
What, sell in one weekend?
Yeah.
Well, I think sellers really like that because nobody likes to have a bunch of people traipsing through their house all the time and multiple days of showings. So I just did a mailer yesterday, and the pitch was sell your home in one weekend of showings. Let me think what it was. Sell your home in one weekend of showings. Get up to $25,000 to prepare your home for sale, and move on your time frame. Because I figure those are 3 things that every seller wants. So they can get a little cash to fix up their house. That's nice. They don't have to have a bunch of people coming through their house and don't have to do open houses and all that kind of stuff that they don't like. And then if they get the flexibility to move when they want to move, right? I figure those are all attractive things. So, and all that is okay, we're going to try to sell it in one weekend. We may or may not be able to, but we're going to try. And hopefully we will if we price it right. I have contractors that'll paint their place, change out flooring, landscaping, and get paid at close of escrow. So that's the $25,000. And what was the last one? Oh, and then we can negotiate a rent back, right? So they can move on their time frame. That's it.
It's great.
Yeah.
We need to have a dedicated call, Mitch, just with Matt Battiata showing all the USPs that he runs. Honestly.
Exactly, we'll call it USP Matt.
I agree.
I'll let somebody else hop in now.
There you go. Brian, go ahead, bud. Take over.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add on this because I just love what we're doing right now. But there's some things that I think about going into conversations with sellers. One, we created a kind of an interview process document that Randy and I gave to our team. And what it was a series of questions that allowed us to just talk to the seller in a comfortable way that kind of framed their mindset on really the goal, right? So if you're an agent, and like Matt was giving the example earlier, real estate agents go into some things fully unprepared, just shooting from the hip. And that's called malpractice, just like a doctor, right? If you don't do an x-ray and somebody's got a broken bone and you don't know they have a broken bone, you're going to get sued. That's malpractice. You're doing a disservice, like Matt said, the disservice. Well, I feel the same way that if I go in and talk to a seller and I haven't done a full x-ray on what they're doing, then I'm going to do them a disservice. If I don't know all the key points of why they're selling, where they're going, what they're doing with the money, all the things that I think it's important for me to know about, I have to have those in my, in my understanding, so I can really do them a service. Because overpricing a property, in the beginning, I think we probably all did that. We all took an overpriced listing in the beginning when we were beginners, right? Every expert was once a beginner. You just learn. I'll never do that again. Sure enough, you do it again. But what happens is sometimes you get lucky and you get a couple offers, and then you get the motivation going, and then pretty soon you have a couple and you play. I let every seller know, by the way, I like investor offers right away on a property that needs a little bit of work, that feels overpriced, but maybe it's not overpriced. Because if I have an offer, at least I can let the other agents know in the area that, hey, the seller's got one on the table, we're negotiating, now's a good time to get your offer on the table. You want to be able to play off that, even if it feels a little overpriced. But here's what I know. The real estate market has never, ever, in my opinion, has never been ready. There's no such thing as a ready market. It's a client who's ready for the market they're getting ready to enter. So if you can prepare a seller or a buyer, but in this case, a seller, who's getting ready to sell their home, what does the market look like that they're getting into? Is it an overpriced market filled with a bunch of, properties sitting on the market and everybody's dreaming for a great price? Or is it a market where interest rates are a little high, buyers are not? Sorry, someone's calling me. Took away my screen. And the seller has a decision to make. Like, the comps are supporting one number, but the market trend is supporting another. And if our job to point that out, I like to say, is it okay if I tell you all the things I would want to know? Being in the business as long as I've been, selling 1,000 homes, overseeing $1 billion worth of business in a brokerage, would it be okay to tell you what I think about this market if it were me entering in the market right now in your house today? Here's what I would want to know. Are you okay with that? And then I have that uncomfortable conversation with them, because I can defend a number based on comps like we all do. We go in with our number. We know what we're after. We all have an understanding of what a house is should sell for. But there's that rare time where there's something that, like, I just had a house that I priced $768,000 and it felt overpriced. It was a time capsule. She was 80 years old. Everything was clean and spick and span, but everything was 30 years outdated. But she had one of the most spectacular views in a 1,400 square foot home in an area that I didn't even know existed. And I've been in San Diego all my life. And I've done real estate here almost 40 years. And this was a hilltop that just had everything. But we priced it, and her family and everybody thought I overpriced it. And in 2 weeks, I ended up with $50,000 over list. They were floored. Okay. So there's that unique time where even we get shocked based upon maybe a great view, maybe a private little area that just, hit all the hot buttons. But most of the time, as experienced as all of us are, and like you said, Matt and David, you guys probably have taken the most listings and done this business in that capacity at the highest level. Sometimes we hit a number that we think we can defend, and the market surprises us. But 90% of the time, we're usually on point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very rare we do that. But the seller's always happy, because if you do get their price and you overshoot the mark with the market, that's great. But 90% of the time, we're really just trying to hit the number that we know we can defend, and then we're going to do it in a timely manner. So that this questionnaire, what it does is, and somebody's going to do the disc talk, I think Craig was going to talk about personalities. My read on clients is that, first, I want them to know I'm not going to do them a disservice and do malpractice on them, because I ask them, hey, is it okay if I sell other homes in the area with all the leads that come from your sign? I get quiet. Sellers are, what are you talking about, Brian? Of course, I guess that's what you do, right? I'm like, yeah, but I just want you to know, if your sign stays up a little longer than normal, it's a little overpriced, or it feels a little different, I just want you to know I'm going to do my best to sell your home, but I'm not going to stop there with these leads. These leads are looking for a home in your area. So I just want you to know that I'm going to be taking some of the leads and showing them other property, or my team's going to be showing properties in the same area. but we're going to be using leads that come in on your house. So these buyers who pass on your house, you're okay with us selling your neighbors' homes in the area. I just want to make sure that's okay with you. You know what they do? They always like, that floors people. They're like, I never thought of that. Well, of course, because your house is going to sit there and maybe sit there a little longer than the other ones. Instead of being sold, it's going to be the reason we're selling other homes in the area, because it's the one that we're marketing. And I just want their okay on that. And if you haven't done that before, try that, or try it in your own little way, because what it does is it reframes their mind. Like, no, I want mine to sell. Well, then let's go back to the price, and let's talk about what we can defend. Let's talk about the comps, because my job is to not let it sit on the market. My job is to get it in escrow. We can always do what Matt said. We can always say, hey, let's do a rent back. You know, let's get it under contract, because if you know what your house is going to sell for and you make it contingent on the close, well, then now you're in the driver's seat. Now you get the best of both worlds. You know, you say you're going here. Well, let's check out what the market's doing here. Let's see if we can't tie up a property over there at a really great price. So now we can price yours a little more aggressively, because you're not leaving money on the table. I like to have fun with sellers in that way, where I do the what ifs and ask a lot of questions and frame their mindset to not focus on their number as much as what really the goal of us selling the property is. And if they're all in, then they're going to be all in. And I don't think I have much more to say on that, but I really think if you don't have an interview questionnaire, have an interview questionnaire that asks certain questions, like, had you thought about selling your home to another family member? No, Brian, you know, we never thought of that. Or, you know what? Yeah, my kids want to buy it. They actually don't want me to sell. My kids want to buy my house. Okay. Well, what did you guys come up with? And now I understand I may have another, sorry, someone just called me again. And it's going to reframe. All of a sudden, I've got a kid who's a buyer that mom and dad don't want them to buy their house because of whatever reasons. But you can see that really good questions lead to great conversations that should get you additional business, attach you to trust, and not do a disservice to those clients. I love that word, Matt. I just say, for between us as practitioners, we're doing malpractice on people if we don't fully understand and engage in all of the understandings of what's really going on, of why they're selling. And when you know why they're selling, then you can go back to that as an anchor and really use it to your favor to say, hey, let's go back. What's changed? You know, I thought you guys needed to be in Texas in the next 60 days. What's going on? Why? What's happened here? You know, and then you have to be a consultant in such a way that the price is never the conversation for me. It's just about them and what they're really doing and what's going on in their motivation for the sale. Because I'm not in it to just see if I can get this great number and then cancel the deal because they're really not flexible and they're not all in. I interview them as much as they interview me, because sometimes you don't want to work with a seller.
Yeah, great stuff. And for someone that didn't have a lot to say, you had a lot of great tips there, bud.
Yeah, no doubt.
That was great. So did anybody else not speak last week? Dave Lawson,
I
did you speak
didn't.
last week? So I guess, so this week, it looks like we're going to stay on listings, and I guess we'll do the personality profiles next week, because we only got 25 more minutes left here. And this
Yeah.
is such
In the
a
end-
great topic, and I think it's
in the end,
so
Mitch,
important
I want to
right
put
now.
a test in for everybody for next week, though. I have that free
Okay, yeah.
test
Oh,
at
do you
the
have
end.
a link for a test?
I'm going to put it in. Everybody copy the link and follow it so they don't remember it at the end. This is for next week. I'm going to put it in now. We're not discussing it, but it's a free test. It'll help us next week. Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted
No,
This
no,
test,
that's
yeah.
great.
So-
Yeah, this lesson. So let's go ahead and start
So
with
good.
Dave, and then we'll go to Karina after that. Go ahead, Dave.
So the first thing I want to say is I wrote 4.5 pages of notes from last call. And Randy Jones, who's on this call out of the Outer Banks, a friend of mine, he's a coach. I've coached him, dear friend. He wants the recording. And Randy, I'm sorry I didn't get it, but it just reminded me, not me, not you, everyone needs to listen to that call last week. It was one of the most powerful ones. Randy asked me, and Pete Middleton was been traveling, and I don't have it. But anyway,
Hey, Dave, just to really on that. So it's on Workplace. I mean, all these are all recorded on Workplace. So you
Okay.
can all go to Workplace and see the recording there. If you missed last week's call, because
Okay.
I wasn't there either, so I heard it was great. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. But anyway, so the notes were incredible. I got so many great ideas, but I'm gonna just talk a little bit about some of the things that I do. So some of you know that I teach a class on how I actually take 100 listings a year. And it really helps me. But what I'm doing right now is I am rewriting my entire SOP to make it even better. And I'm going to share with you that with everybody at a later date. But anyway, here's some of the things that I can tell you that have really helped me sell over 3,500 properties in Park City. And since there's 10,000, we have a little experience. But there's a lot of things that go on to getting listings, having conversations, meeting people, doing things. But from the notes, after I looked at all the notes, I wanted to bring out a few things. First of all, when you're talking to a client, they all listen to the same radio station. It's WIFM. It's what's in it for me. And I think we all, and this is part of the reason that I'm redoing my SOP on everything from the before I meet someone to the time it's closed is why we're updating it. And a lot of it has to do with finding out what they really want. So you have to go into the presentation or when you're pre-qualifying or you're setting the appointment, you've got to ask really good questions. And then you have to ask qualifying questions. You really need to know, and you have to have, one, you have to write down the questions. Two, you have to have the nerve to ask them. Like, I'll just say, Mitch, are you interviewing other agents? Yes, 3. I'm interviewing 3. Fantastic. Right? And then you can handle it. So, Mitch, tell me, what are the 3 things that you're going to determine or how you're going to hire and choose the agent to represent you on the most important financial decision possibly that you're ever going to make? And then Mitch says, well, I want someone that's going to like market it like crazy, or I want somebody who is going to commute, or he'll say, the last agent that I listed with 5 years ago, man, he took the listing and I never heard from him, or whatever it is. And then he tells you what it is. Okay. Then I already know I know where I can lead the discussion, right? So I wanted to just point that out. Another thing is excitement sells. You guys, when I walk into a listing appointment, as I'm walking to the door, I walk up and I go, it's showtime, right? And then I'm just really, really excited, right? And one of the things that I do when I'm in the house is I like to, as I walk in and I meet them and I'm walking around the house and I'm making notes on the house, I'm actually selling the house to them. This is the time to point out all the features of the house, right? So that has been something that has really, really helped me. Some of the other things that you can do is you need to know some of the scripts and some of the sound bites. Like one of my favorites is we're talking about price or anything. As a professional real estate agent, Mitch, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I'm going to assume that you're going to price your home to sell and not sit on the market in the next 3 to 6 months or whatever, right? Last time somebody said this, and I'm going to just say it again. Sometimes I'll say, as we're talking to people or we're talking to the sellers, I'll say, Mitch, you've just told me this. I really love it. You're being really honest with me and telling me exactly what you want. Is that right? And you say, yes. And I say, so do I have permission to be 100% honest with you? Right? That is a great one. But But here is something that I want you all to know. And in the presentation, this is something that I'm working on right now. You can say there are 3 things that sell a house. What are they? We know one of them is price, one is exposure, and one is presentation. So what I'm doing right now is I've taken those 3 things and I'm building something on it. But what I'll say is, Mitch, there's 3 things that sell a house. One is price, one is exposure, and one's presentation. You get to control 2 of those. I'm going to control 1. So the price of the home, you're going to be the one that sets the price. And 2, the presentation. You're going to set, it's your house. So the presentation, what are you going to do to get ready for the house? Are you going to do $100,000 remodel on your kitchen because it's 20 years old, or you want to sell it like that? And then the last one is exposure, and that's what I have control over. And I don't have this whole thing built, but when I do, I'll share it with you. But the other thing is I believe, so we've talked about a few things like, how do you get price reductions? How do you price a home? So with price reductions, as the market slows down and flattens out, we've got to really get good once we have it of getting them. And by the way, I have a rule: don't take a small price reduction that won't work, because the first price reduction is easy to get. All other price reductions are like pulling teeth, right? So that's a thing. That's one of the notes that nobody brought up last time.
That's really good, Dave.
Yeah. And then with the exposure, so you're giving a lot of power, right, when you talk about price, because ultimately I say at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that's going to pick the price, and you're going to determine if the house sells or not. Right? See, that's being honest with somebody. Right? And then we have the whole conversation on price, and then the presentation. And when you talk about the presentation of your home, like Matt came up, the house down the street sold for 3.1. That means that the new seller, Matt, they're going to want 3.1, and he was honest, right? So that's part of this whole discussion on presentation. But then once you get that, the exposure is where we can blow it up, right? This is where that's where we really can shine and talk about what we're going to do. A lot of people on this call are at EXP, not everybody, but when you're on a $1 million property at EXP, I bring up the Lux VT thing, and I say, Matt, would it be okay if when I list your home, I'm assuming the sale, right? Would it be okay if I marketed your home on the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Barron's, Robb Report, Market Watch, Unique Homes, Mansion Global, Upmarket, and a bunch of others? Would that be okay? Yeah. Right? And they just get their big eyes and go, you will do that? And I say, I do that on every listing that I have that's over $1 million, because my job is to protect your equity and get you the most money possible, right? Who wants somebody that's going to protect their equity, right? See, these are little sound bites that come with being in sales and selling a boatload of homes, right? So those are just some of the thoughts that I wanted to bring up. And I really, instead of doing a whole presentation, I picked out the things that were not talked about last week. All right. So that's why everyone, and I'm not saying, all you, I'm saying me. I'm going to watch it, and thank you. And thanks, Mitch, or thanks, Pete, for sending the link right here. So Randy, and by the way, if you have anybody in the Outer Banks, send them to Randy Jones. He is a phenomenal agent. Sorry, I'm going to give a plug to him. He's a recovering attorney that sells real estate, but he is absolutely amazing at what he does with his partner Lynn. So anyway, that's kind of what I had. Thank you.
Awesome, great stuff there. I can always count on you, Dave, for like having stuff that like makes me feel like I suck at real estate. Uh, oh yeah, I actually do. That's right. Anyway, in fact, Karina, take it
I mean,
away.
not like some big shoes to fill. But
Right,
I feel
right.
like David's more like my brother because David talked about energy and enthusiasm, and I do the same thing. If, doesn't matter the call you just had in the car on the way there, seller's not happy on something, your family members bitching you out, you have to leave it at the door. And when you walk up to that door, you take a deep breath and it's go time. So that's my words. Dave has his words, right? And it's time to go. And nothing was ever sold without enthusiasm. So if you want to win that listing and every listing, you have to go in with enthusiasm. They're excited for you to see their home. You have to be excited to see their home. And that will come through the entire presentation or the entire appointment that while you're there, if you keep that energy level up. So really important to actually make sure you treat your sellers like human beings and not like you're in a robot situation and trying to get through the motions, because that is really uncomfortable for everybody. Nobody really wants to see a presentation. When was the last time you asked some telemarketer to call you up and come to your house and start going through a flip book? Never, right? You actually want to kick them out of your house at that point. So if you can get to the point where you can have just a conversation with them, I like to take control as soon as I get in the door. I always have this ginormous bag because I want to throw them off and there's really nothing in there but postcards and my CMA. But I want them to see this big bag thinking something's big's they're gonna have to sit through. But that's my chance to be able to say, where can I set my bag? Can I set it at the kitchen table or the dining room table? I want to know that I'm sitting where I need to sit with them. And so once they tell me where I can drop my bag off, I drop it off and I go, great, grab a pen and paper and let's go outside. And I do this from a $300,000 house up to my million plus houses. And I do not want to do what everybody else does. So I like to do the opposite. Everybody else wants to go in the house and just start looking at the house. I like to take everybody outside. First of all, it lets everybody breathe. And now I'm watching their guard go down. And they are like, okay, what's she going to do with us? And I start putting things out to them. This tree needs to get trimmed back. This is the first picture we're going to see on the MLS and Zillow and Realtor.com. So instantly they're already feeling comfortable with me because they're writing their notes down. I make them write it down because A, I don't know if they'll read my handwriting. And two, I want them to remember it, right? They have skin in the game now. So we go through the house, we go through everything, we sit back down, and now we're having a conversation around the CMA. And I always ask them, when you go to sell your property, do you want to be the person that is going to be sitting around for a while and then people want to know if there's something wrong with your house? Or do you want to go in there like gangbusters and try to get your house sold for top dollar sooner than later? And a lot of times they'll say, well, we'd be okay with later. Why do you want to be later? Now I'm finding out that, well, we don't really need to move until my kid graduates high school in May. Okay, well, maybe we need to delay when we start the listing. So you can actually, if you start letting people just talk to you and you listen to them, listening is very important. If you're not good at remembering what people are saying in a situation like that, make sure you have a pad of paper so you can actually write things down, because it's really important for them to see that you care about what they're saying. I remember, so I tell them I have this crazy photographic memory. So then we recall things and then they realize I'm not kidding. So they realize that I know you want to make sure they understand that you're an industry expert. So if you can explain that to them as you're going through the comps and going through their house and I'm actually, as we go through the house and there's things that they need, I'm like, hang on a second, write this plumber's name down. He can fix that problem. And then we'll walk a little further, write this person's name down. By the time we sit down for the comps, I say, before we get to the numbers, how about we make a phone call to whatever the biggest problem was in their house? If it's a roof, I got a roofer that always picks up my call because he's had over 500 roofs he's done for me over the years. So we'll call the roofer. Roofer picks up, hey, Karina, what do you need? Hey, I'm sitting here with John and Mary. They need a new roof. Before we list, how soon can you get over here to walk the roof and give them an estimate? Well, where are you? I give them the address. I could be there later today. I could be there tomorrow. Okay, great. Hang up. They are not going to go to anybody else once they're talking to my contacts. I can tell you right now, that is an anchor every single time. The other thing is that when you're going through the CMA or your comps or however you want to call it, I know the comps. I've looked at them. I know the good, the bad, and the ugly that's out there that we're going to be up against. So I address that these are the things that we're going to be up against. So now they know I also know what they've been looking at. So from that point, now it's very easy for me to make sure that they get into a price bracket that I know that we can sell it at. It's very rare I get someone that's not within a window that I know is something that we can sell on. And there's a range, right? I mean, where you don't have, I always tell everybody, if I had a crystal ball and I knew the exact number your house would sell, I wouldn't even be here selling real estate. I'd have won the lottery and I would have won on stocks and I would be retired on a beach somewhere. So, but I do know the range of where you're going to sell. So if they are pushing for a higher number, I'm just going to make numbers up for a minute. If I'm at 500 and they want 525, I'm not going to lose the listing over 25,000. But I will tell you, I am going to pre-negotiate what I call trolling. I'm a terrible person. Don't ever give me a fishing rod because I cannot catch a fish. But I tell you, I can catch customers. So I like to go trolling with my price reductions. And I have learned over the years, high properties, low properties, price-wise, if you drop it every Friday morning, between 7 and 8 a.m., right when people are getting ready to go to work for Friday, they're working out their schedule for that weekend with their realtor, and you do it every single Friday, 3 Fridays in a row, there's something about those 3 Fridays. So if you're going to do a $50,000 price drop on a higher end home, break it down into threes and drop. What happens is they pump up, they pop up, they pop up. And then people are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this house. We got to get in and see it. And a lot of times I get multiple offers on a house that maybe was a little overpriced. So we make sure we have that in there. And that works like a charm every single time. And we wrap advertising around it, and it's all over social media. You're not going to want to miss this house. So you have to put some excitement behind it as well. But those things really, really, really help keep you pre-negotiate your pricing down ahead of time. So you don't have to go get 3, signed price reductions in SkySlope. It's already done. And I always tell the client, don't worry, I'm not going to drop your price until we talk first, because maybe we have something that's happening that Saturday and maybe we'll withhold doing the first price drop at that point. So, you have the conversation, and it has always worked out very well that way. And so those would be like some quick, easy tips for you guys to take out.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny, Karina, actually, I've done that strategy for years where I would actually drop the price $100 a week. After 2 weeks, I'd mark a listing for 2 weeks. We didn't get any offers. I'd start lowering it $100 a week on Thursday night late, because I knew it would show up on the Friday morning feed to the consumer. And every Friday morning when they send it out, usually by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning is when they update the feeds. And that would be it'd be back up to first in line on their feed, because if you don't do that, you don't see it. And there's lots of different pros and cons for it. But I've done it very successfully, by the way. Brian, you had a question? You're on mute there, bud.
I just had a quick comment. Karina hit something home that I forgot about. One of the things that, like, when you walk in with that bag and you want to set it down and you want to kind of control the environment, and you set that, where are we going to be meeting at, when we're sitting down, I want to put my bag down. One of my mentors told me, he said, Brian, you can have a 30-minute or a 2-hour listing presentation, depending on how things go. If you're in a hurry, how you efficiently control that is you do the same exact thing. Where can I put my bag down or my briefcase down or my things down? But then you say, hey, listen, I need to go through your house alone, because you're not going to be here and I'm not going to be here when realtors show it. And I need to see what kind of questions the buyers are going to have based upon their own tour without you. So now you can efficiently go right through the house in record time, because they're not showing you the pictures and all the upgrades or things like that. And you come back with just very few questions, but they should be the most important questions, right? They're going to be the ones that we as agents know are going to be deal breaker questions, like, oh, hey, in that back room, that big desk that's in there, looks like it's built in. Is that going to remain? Because that's going to be a question I'm going to get a lot. That. When you can come back with a few items like that, you're going to open up discussions now that takes the conversation right into the listing and what things are going to be disclosed and non-disclosed. And now you're working on paperwork that you need to have in your listing anyway, that is going to work in your favor later. So that was my comment.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny, and I'll just, we only got like 2 minutes here, so I'll just finish up real quick. So a couple of things that I've done. I've got almost every listing I've gone on in my career. I've lost a couple here and there, but very few. A couple of things that are givens. If they have a puppy, I get the listing, right? Because I am on the ground in my suit, rolling around with hair all over my body, and I'll actually walk in the door, and they'll say, "Hey, hi," I'm like, "Sorry, I got to play with the puppy first," and I'll drop down and stop playing with the puppy. Sometimes I don't even have to do a presentation. I had one couple once said, "You know what? If our puppy loves you that much, you get the listing." So it's really, I do the same thing as Brian does in a lot of ways. Is I don't like to walk around with the customer. And this is, by the way, this is whatever you like, because I know people are really adamant about walking around with the customer. Everybody does things a little bit different, right? I don't want to walk around because I don't really want to sit there for 2 hours watching the guy show me every upgrade there is at that point, right? So I do the same thing. I put my, say this, Karina says where we're going to be meeting. I put my folder down, which has my stuff in it. I never do a formal presentation. I don't do anything formal. I'm just me, right? And luckily, I'm so damn good looking. They just drop dead and go, "Oh my God, list my house." But and then I go, I want to walk around the house as a buyer would, same as Brian just said, because I want to see what the house looks like as a buyer without you interjecting the good, what's good, what's bad, what's not. And then I do say that I write down certain notes during the thing and have that conversation with them about that. So that's one thing. So I totally agree with that philosophy, Brian. I do the same thing. And it's not because I want to get out of there quickly. It's just that I could be there for 2 hours having them explain. I have been in the past 2 hours of explaining every upgrade they did to the house over the last 25 years. That's not going to help me at all. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly with a minute left is price reductions, because I think in this market in particular, in different markets, they're like, Karina and I are lucky. Our market actually is really strong. So we're only down 1% over last year, but we have the Space Center. They call us the next Silicon Valley. So, but if you're trying to get a price reduction, it's really important that you explain that we could be chasing the market until you get nothing. And I've seen that over the years. When we crashed in 08, 07, 06, 08, 09, 10, we saw people chasing the market, and we don't know what the market's going to do right now. Right? We don't know. I mean, we think it's going to go good. I think it's an election year, so I think they're going to try to artificially deflate the interest rate so we can get the economy moving again a little better. But we don't really know what's going to happen. So we just had this conversation. Pat and I just closed the house last week or 2 weeks ago, and the conversation, we started at 520 because when we did the original comps, we did them in October, but those were based on July, August, and September comps, right? 90 days prior. But unfortunately, the market really shifted in September when the interest rates went over 7. So those comps weren't really good anymore. And in the conversation I did, the last conversation I had with them before we lowered the price to 450 was just, we don't want to be chasing the market because you could end up losing way more money over the long term if we have another crash. Don't know if that's going to happen, but how important it is to sell your house today? And they said, we want the house gone. We don't want it anymore. It's vacant. We want it gone. I said, all right. So we had listed at 450. So we went from 520 down to 450 in a couple of different steps. And then we got an offer for 4.25. They said, what should we do? I said, well, we can go back and we risk the chance of them saying no, or you can take the 4.25 and be done. And they're like, let's be done. So you dictate the flow of the conversation, but you've got to keep it. You got to keep it positive. You got to be happy. You got to be fun, but you also have to be honest and sincere. Like Matt said earlier, this is all about honesty. Don't try bluffing your way through it because you won't make it. Anyways, it's 101. Let's get off of here. Next week we're going to do personality. Craig put in the link to the PDF. So grab the PDF. We'll stay up. Dre, keep this on for another minute or so. People can grab the PDF there and do your assessment for next week. And have a wicked awesome week, guys. We'll talk to you next week.